Hey, this is Chris from Financial Modeling Education, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about the single most valuable skill that I've learned in my entire career. And I hate when people say stuff like this, this one thing made all the difference, because I'm just like, come on, dude, seriously. But in this instance, it is true. And the number one thing that has been the most valuable skill in my entire career has been three-statement modeling. And the reason I say that is because what everybody gets wrong, and I'm just going through a blog post that I've put together, is that people think until they kind of understand the three statements that there are specific models, that hey, do you have a SaaS model or an FP&A model or LBO or M&A? There's got to be some kind of unique model that I need in order to build the company that I'm looking at. And the truth is that every single company can actually roll up into the three statements. And that's why knowing it is so valuable. So when people are asking for stuff like this, what they're really looking for is the underlying components. How do I model the specific business? But people don't really realize that it can actually all roll up into the three statements. I'm just going to show you a model quick. So this is just a generic three-statement model with the income statement, balance sheet here, and the statement of cash flows. And so long as you know how these three pieces are interconnected, you can build any business that you want. If it's an FP&A model, well, you're going to have a lot of focus on the income statement and then driving the corresponding balance sheet accounts. And then that's going to drive your cash. And the statement of cash flows should be an automatic calculation based on some of the notes that I have here. You're just referencing changes in the income statement and the balance sheet. And so if you're doing a different model like a SaaS model, which is a very common request, the only real difference is, and I don't have it in this model, but you're going to just have an unearned revenue account sitting on the liabilities side of the balance sheet because a lot of people pay for subscriptions up front. And so you now have cash for revenue that you are yet to deliver. So you're going to have a liability account here. And then as the revenue comes in, which is going to be more even, pretend it's like a 12-month contract, you're going to have a single monthly revenue amount that comes through in your income statement. So you would have, software revenue or subscription revenue, and that would just chip away at the unearned revenue liability in your balance sheet. And that's the only difference. That's SaaS, putting in this unearned revenue piece. And yeah, there's a bunch of metrics you would put on the top that are important to the SaaS industry. And sometimes that's what people mean when they're asking for a SaaS model, but those KPIs are always outputs. Structurally, that's the only thing that you're adding. And so similarly, another example, right? Do you have an LBO model? All we're really adding in that instance is going to be more debt. And this model does have a revolver and a senior debt. But what you would have in an LBO model is you would just have some of this debt and some new equity trigger at a closing date. And so you'd have new things hitting the balance sheet. You'd still have the same income statement forecast, and your statement of cash flows would just reflect the transaction given the changes in the income statement and the balance sheet. So what I keep coming back to is structurally, so long as you know how the income statement communicates with the balance sheet and then how the statement of cash flows is effectively the bridge between, whoops, sorry, my screen jumped there, with how the statement of cash flows is the bridge between the two, then you can really build anything that you want. And that's how I do a lot of my models. I've got the three statements, and then below that, I just have support schedules that are unique to the business. So this net working capital is going to drive the balance sheet. This accrued bonus is just more detail to drive the balance sheet. Same with the taxes, more detail to drive the balance sheet and the income statement. And then the debt schedule, right? All this stuff looks pretty complicated, revolver here and senior debt. What I'm really doing, I'm just making schedules that hit the balance sheet. So at the end of the day, that's all the model is. You've got the income statement and the balance sheet, and any detail throughout the file is just going to be feeding one of these line items. Another example here is labor. I've got this linked to an outside tab, so I've got a headcount section over here. This is just where I map out, everybody that works at the company. It's one line item in my income statement, so this subtotal here is going to link back to my income statement, which will then drive the balance sheet and drive the statement of cash flows. So at the end of the day, that's all that modeling is. You've got a three-statement global structure, but then underneath that, you're modeling the specifics of any one given business. And so that's why I say that learning the three statements has been the most valuable skill of my entire career, because now that I know how this works in my head, it doesn't matter what kind of business I see. I can always map it back to the structure. And then when there are specific nuances for the company, we can just build that out. Every company is going to have something different for revenue. And so we will make our own fancy revenue schedule over here. But once that's done, again, I'm just linking it back to the total revenue so that I know it flows correctly into the three statements. So it's almost like you want to get the correct plumbing first at the three statement level, because then backfilling all the details is very, very easy. And then your summary is even easier because you're then just pulling from the three statement model. So if I could give you one piece of advice, if somebody's like, what do I do in my career? What do I study, or should I go deep on VBA, or, some kind of like intricate Excel thing? I would completely disagree with that. I would try to do your best to understand the fundamentals of three statement modeling and how do the pieces all specifically fit together. That has made the biggest difference in my career, and I know it can make a big difference in yours. So thanks so much for watching. That's it for this one. I will see you in the next one.